This is World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with your host, Carl Gruber. World Awakenings is a podcast dedicated to opening your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how they play an all-important role in our daily life. So join Carl on this enlightening experience as he interviews metaphysical and spiritual experts to discuss, debate, and delve deeply into the hows and whys of this worldwide awakening.
Hey, this is Carl Gruber, host of this podcast, World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment. I'm proud that my show is a part of the Ethereal Podcast Network, a network of podcasts with like-minded themes exploring the realm of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening. Here's one you should give a listen to, the podcast Breathe, Love, and Magic with host Ronnie Ann Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Ann Ryan, intuitive coach bringing real talk to the mystical realm on the Breathe, Love, and Magic podcast. Feel like the universe or your spirit guides aren't delivering? Maybe you're confused by esoteric lingo or which healing method to try. Well, you're in the right place, because who has time for confusion when you're trying to build a business, find love, heal, and recover? So buckle up, open that heart chakra, and let's cut through the cosmic fluff together, shall we? Good fortune favors the bold, right here on the Breathe, Love, and Magic podcast.
Hey, thank you for joining us here today on World Awakenings, a fast track to enlightenment, the show that asks the experts and teachers of the world, why now more than ever are the people of the world awakening to all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening? And we continue this mission with today's show, episode number 136, with yet another amazing guest. Now, one beautiful aspect of my job as host of this show is that it has allowed me to fly virtually around the world to chat one-on-one with some of the world's top experts, teachers, and authors and masters on these topics that I believe you want to know more about. And in doing so, I truly hope it helps you to make more sense of the complexity and chaos of this wild and crazy 3D world we live in. So today's guest, Dr. Lynn Carey, is here to help put you on that path of awakening to the state of ultimate well-being. After suffering with sickness and pain for many years, Dr. Lynn Carey earned a doctorate in chiropractic and a bachelor's degree in nutrition from Life University. She owned a practice in Wilmington, Delaware for 18 years, and she's traveled to Brazil and India, helping to empower others to create their desired life of health, wealth, and perfect self-expression by overcoming the chronic stress in their life that is the main culprit in causing sickness and physical issues. And she is the author of the book, My Journey to Grace, Shattering Mainstream Illusions and Creating My Desired Life. So I really look forward to hearing all about this. So welcome to the show, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Carl, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, yeah. And we were talking before we came on the show here. I don't know. I've read a lot about you, and, this is the first time we've met. I just feel like there's something about you. You have some light to shine on the world. So let's find out more about that. So now, I really find your mission of combining your expertise as a chiropractor with your passion for a person's individual personal power to heal themselves or peace, purpose, manifesting the life they desire. I love that. However, before we go into this, I'd like to hear more about your own journey of dealing with pain and suffering for lots of years.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was about 14, and I truly believe there is an emotional component. I learned in chiropractic school that the emotional component behind scoliosis is that the person feels pulled in two directions. So because your spine's going in two directions, I had an S-shaped curve. And that really applied to me because I really thought there had to be more to life. Like I was very kind of depressed as a kid being shown what I was told this was life. I didn't like school. My family, they just worked all the time. There really wasn't much fun or happiness. It was just like survival. And I thought, if this is all there is, I really don't want to be here. So I really felt that deeply, and I didn't express that because then you would be made to feel guilty for even feeling that way, right? But I ended up having, I just did exactly what the medical world said. That's all we knew. And I ended up having Harrington rods put in my spine at 15. And I was lucky they took them out a year and a half later. I think it's because I was already experiencing pain, because usually once you put rods in, they're there for life. And I can't imagine having my spine with rods my whole life, especially knowing what I know now. But the surgery itself was a success. But afterwards, I started having pain, and I was just sick all the time. My immune system was shot, and I would either have to have antibiotics or a painkiller, but nothing really worked. And it left me sick and in pain again. And I would need, they want to do another prescription. And I kept asking the medical doctor, I saw different ones, why do I keep getting sick? And their only answer was, let me write you a stronger prescription. And I thought, they don't know. Like, I knew here as a kid, I'm like, they don't have an answer for me. So I was just in college trying to find myself, because I was told you got to go to college to be successful. And someone told me to look into chiropractic as a profession. I read the pamphlet, and it said the power that made the body heals the body. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's the first time I heard truth. I didn't know that. But you know how something resonates with you and it's like, hey, this is something different. Nobody has said this to me. I just went to chiropractic school. I didn't even get adjusted. And it was the beginning of a complete transformation. It changed my life.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I did have a chance. Unfortunately, I've only had a chance to read the little sample portion of your book. And what I saw, you had a rough time growing up, and you went to this a Catholic school where you were not well treated, or any of the other students, and your dad had a really hard time. Work, and when he got sick, he had a pretty rough ending there too, which I'm sure set your paradigms on your new path.
Oh, absolutely. I think about my dad, I really, now looking back, he was diagnosed with cancer. He didn't have a good diet. He was a smoker, but you know what the main thing was is he was an entrepreneur at heart. And here he was in his late 40s, early 50s, that he failed at many businesses. Now he had a family. I came late in life. He had a family to raise. It's a lot of pressure for a man. He had to go to a job that I don't think he was too crazy about. He had to work the night shift at a bakery. And I just saw him sleeping during the day, and he just didn't have, now I realize he didn't have life. It was like he had lost his energy. That's exactly what I would describe. And then of course the medical field just came in and finished him off. They pounded him with the chemo and surgery, and he just withered away. And at the end, he didn't even know who I was. But I saw him not suffer anymore. And I thought, well, I was raised Catholic, and I thought, well, heaven sounds like this utopia, but nobody seems to want to go. They all want to think they need to stay here. I had one parent in heaven, one parent here, and I'm like, I kind of am mad he left me here. I think he's in a better place. That was what I took from it. So, but I know broken dreams can lead to disease. That's exactly what happened with him. And the whole Catholic thing is so insane. That's probably the most uninvolved. I'm sorry to offend anybody, but I was raised in the Catholic world, and even when I went back in my hometown with practice, I always felt like the Catholics were the most hard to reach. They just, I don't know if it's the programming, I don't know what it is, but the Catholic religion is just very weird.
Well, you're not the only one to say that. I have many Catholic friends, so growing up, and I heard about that. But I want to go back just for a second on your scoliosis. I got a loose outline of questions here, but the reason I ask this is I've been in the running and fitness industry for a long time, and so I speak to many people with problems. It seems to me that women specifically have scoliosis way more than men, and yet you're saying that it's because a person is pushed and pulled in different directions. Any thoughts on that? Is that true? Do women get scoliosis more?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that. It could be true. I haven't heard that, but the first thought that came to my mind is I think sometimes emotionally women carry more. The burden, the rounded shoulders, we carry more, the emotion of other people, the burden of life. So it would make sense that you say that.
Yeah. I just wondered about that. So, what was the turning point in your own life that finally pointed you in the direction of creating the life you really desired after denying yourself that ability for so long?
Yeah. Like I said, finding chiropractic, that truth was the first of many. I went to chiropractic school and opened up a whole new world for me. So I was around a whole bunch of people who looked at the body completely different than I was ever taught. Like we just honored that there's an inner wisdom that runs the body. We called it innate intelligence. That's the whole foundation of chiropractic philosophy, that, as we're sitting here, all our organs are working and we're not doing it. We couldn't do it if we tried. There's like, your body's doing millions of functions all at once, all day long. And so what is the body trying to do? So we don't always necessarily acknowledge that symptoms are bad. We're like, symptoms are part of the healing process. So what is your body trying to do? Do we really want to block the symptom from happening with a drug? Cut out the organ? We don't have spare parts. So as we really started looking at this naturally, made much more sense. And I also had to get, I had to pass 4 national boards. So I had to get what the medical doctors learned too, to get this doctor title, which I feel like we sold our soul a little bit doing in the process. But when you understand that they don't really study healing, they just study how to give you a drug. They want to label all your body symptoms. Like they want to give it a label so they can drug it, or they need to cut it out. They start looking more and more at the parts of the body instead of the whole person. And the more I started looking at how the body's functioning, the more I started thinking, well, how do other things affect your body? That's what made me open up more to the emotional component, and what's going on when they're in their life that's causing the body or the life force to shut down a little bit, so I started connecting that even more so once I got into practice. And once I realized I had answers for something else, that what I thought growing up, I'm like, there's got to be more to life. Chiropractic showed me that. So just learning a whole new view of health and how I started to heal. And it wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't that I got adjusted and I felt better. It was a few years until I started feeling better. But I had nothing but time.
Mm-hmm.
I had tried everything. Nothing worked. I just thought I was going to live like that forever. So they said it takes time to get sick. It takes time to heal sometimes. So I had time. And I was also around a whole bunch of people who were very supportive of going through this process, which was amazing, was such a gift. And it gave me the gumption. I'm like, hey, let me question about money, relationships, like what's going on in life? What's the real world? Like I knew there were other answers because I found that through health. So I think it really opened up the path for other things in life for me to find new truths.
I think that's what I like about you, is you're bigger than just adjusting somebody's skeleton. You're more into, like myself. I wrote an ebook called The 3 Pillars, based on the pillars of your life, which are mental, physical, and spiritual. So there's way more to it than just that. It's like the medical, well, first of all, I this morning I got up, had my coffee, and I did my morning reading of A Course in Miracles, and it was all about cause and effect. And so the medical community of the world treats the effect, the symptoms, without really getting to the cause of whatever the malady is. And for you, I find it interesting because I was reading on your website, you say that chronic stress is the main culprit. Can you talk about that more?
Definitely. So one of the key things that I wanted to bring up, that my turning point in chiropractic school, I believe, because of this understanding that I got about how the body heals, I lost my fear that I couldn't heal. And I believe I wasn't afraid of the pain anymore. I knew it was a normal process of healing. And when that eased up, I was able to heal quicker. So I already tapped into a little bit of the emotional and mental components of healing. And when I got into practice, because I was definitely more mechanical in school, but once I got into practice, I started becoming very aware of the energetics. My hands were getting very hot. I realized working on people, I'm like, there's so much more going on here. And then I realized, I'm like, the only reason we have disease is because we believe in it. I mean, the disease doesn't even make sense. It's just dis-ease. And I knew, like, where I was going with my thoughts and what I was understanding. I knew the mainstream was not, I sounded crazy. People weren't ready for that. It was a little too, I mean, this was in 1990, late 90s, early 2000s, and I just felt like I had to be careful how I express things, because people really get offended if you say there's no disease. People like their diseases. And I say that with compassion, but a lot of people identify with the disease. It's kind of giving them, I realized they needed it to get through life, because there was other things they weren't facing. Job they hated, bad relationships, family dynamics. That's how they got attention. You know what I mean? There was a lot of things they weren't working on. It was so interconnected. And I also saw, people were just coming in stressed out. And I would say, like, they would say, oh, I just got this pain. And I'm like, well, are you more stressed out than normal? What's going on? Oh, no, everything's normal. But they would tell me about their day, and I was just stressed out listening to it. But that was normal for them. The high stress became so normal, and I realized that's what I call the rat race of life. They're just trying to make ends meet, right? They're trying to pay their bills. They're trying to get their kids through school nonstop. Do you notice society's nonstop? Everybody's busy, busy, busy all the time. They don't even have time to heal. They don't have time to be sick. So I realized, I'm like, this whole setup, not enough time, not enough money, not enough. They didn't feel purpose in life. They weren't happy. Um, they didn't have time to heal. They didn't have time to pursue alternative treatments or even pay for them, right? A lot of them only would get um, healing treatments what their insurance dictated, and that most of the time really wasn't about healing. That was crisis care, disease care, which a lot of times it made people worse. So I saw all this and I'm like, this is insanity. This is the cause of people needing to see me all the time. They're not getting better. This chronic state, this is what I found.
I found it interesting that you said just a little while ago, I lost my fear of healing. And it's interesting because, as you well know, many people gain their identity through their pain in whatever or in their stress and whatever is going on, and they actually are afraid to be well because, well, what would I identify with? I'm all about cancer. I'm all about my bad back or whatever. But it's the truth. You really can lose your fear of healing. Now, I am the facilitator, along with my colleague Eleni Yambalis, of a Power of 8 healing group on Facebook, and we have 1,400 people from around the world where we come together virtually and heal a person, place, or thing. We just focus on them. It's based on Lynn McTaggart's research in her book, The Power of 8. So I understand that. I encounter that a lot. I mean, people do identify, but why would you, if you have the freedom to lose that fear of healing, then you can return back to it. You don't need to identify with sickness or injury.
That's right. But the thing is, sometimes people, they don't know who they are without it, right? Like maybe they're not ready to face, like, maybe I need a new career path, or maybe my family has dysfunctional ways that I just have to be a part of. Like, how do I get boundaries from people in my family if I don't have this illness to say, I can't do this right now? Because we feel like if we just set boundaries for ourselves, it's being unkind, or it starts to ripple effect the dynamics of the relationship. There's a lot of codependency, a lot of dysfunction too, that people aren't always ready to. I came from a lot of it. And you don't even realize you're in it because it's like an invisible web. It's your normal. And when you start to evolve, you start to realize, hey, this is kind of weird, and then you start questioning the dynamics, but it's a lot for people. A lot of people aren't ready to face even making a career change, or how am I going to pay for things. My goal was I wanted to become financially free. It wasn't easy. It's not easy. I'm still on the path because I just feel like this was part of me creating my desired life, but it made me really look at a lot of limiting beliefs and family dynamics that I was in that really, it was going to cause some friction, So a lot of people aren't ready to look at the inner dynamics, but the thing is, it's all energy, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're not looking at a limiting belief somewhere, it's going to manifest somewhere else as a blocked energy, disease, or bad luck. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's no synchronicity in your life, so it's going to start to come out in those ways because you have to eventually get the energy flowing. Mm-hmm. So it's all connected.
Speaking of that, what you just said, it's all connected. What I read on your personal journey, that you've had a spiritual awakening, and you understand now that, as you said, we're all connected. You call it the one verse. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, so I did some mission trips with other chiropractors. We just decided to go, not to get paid, but just to bring chiropractic to these areas that didn't have chiropractic. We had my friend was a chiropractor, had a person he adjusted in his practice who was from this small town in Brazil, asked us to bring chiropractic there for like 10 days. And we went and we started adjusting people, and we had translators, but the amount of people that came, we weren't talking to every person. They spoke Portuguese, we spoke English, and they would just lay down on the table. I would just feel their spine, adjust where I felt needed it, and they'd go. And we tapped into such a high energy. The vibration was amazing. And I realized this was our natural state eventually. But I realized we were all one. We were all connected in this moment, in this high vibration. And there wasn't any drugs involved. There wasn't any drinking involved. It was just this natural high. And eventually I realized I would go back to my hometown, and I kind of crashed a little bit because I didn't know how to maintain that high vibration. But I knew we tapped into something, but I just didn't rationally understand it. And that's what we call the universe. It's one verse, right? We're all connected to source. We're all one. And I really started to see that there. And then I ended up having my own awakening back at home, and it lasted for about 18 months. This was what I called my grace state. And the only way I can describe it is that it's like falling in love, but there's no other person. Mm-hmm. There's no reason that you feel this high and giddy and joyful, and you're looking at your life and you don't even see problems anymore. You just look at, oh, it's just silly what I was hung up on. You're just so happy. And I realized, I'm like, this is our natural state. This is why I'm adjusting people so they feel this again. This is why we're looking for the next relationship, or that falling in love feeling, because that's our natural feeling inside. This is why we're looking for more money, the next trip, all these false highs, they're temporary fixes to let us feel that place inside of us. But once you know how to feel that place inside of you without any reason, that's our normal state. And then I felt like now we can create our life from that aligned place where we're truly feeling our alignment to source.
Wow, that is just so awesome. Yeah, that you can understand that. But what I also find interesting too is you teach people that in order to heal their bodies and their lives, you need to shoot for a state of ultimate well-being. What is your exact definition of what you call ultimate well-being?
I think ultimate well-being is where you are, if you're not feeling the grace state right away, I believe you should be asking yourself, are you living the life you truly want? Are you happy in all areas of your life? Because I think you need to face it, or at least acknowledge or be aware of areas that maybe you aren't happy, so you can begin to open up to solutions. It's not that you have to bulldoze your whole life and turn it upside down. Sometimes that happens, right? But it's just simple. Just start to be aware. And because a lot of people don't know where to start. And I say, take a pen to paper, because there's something very healing and creative about writing things on paper, and just start being open to ideas that come to you. To start the creative process, I think one of the most powerful things you can do is write a gratitude list, right? Or things that you appreciate. Start making mental notes of things that happen throughout the day that you appreciate, because that orients you to more solutions, instead of, sometimes we're so focused on the problem and what we have to fix, but looking for things to appreciate opens you up to that God source. That state of appreciation you're starting to tap into that grace state, I believe, so that's a great place to start, is just being aware of the things that are going right in your life. And then I always say, sometimes people say they don't know what they want. I believe we all know what we want. I think when they say that, it's because they don't believe they can have it, right? Mm-hmm. They're too realistic, and they haven't opened up to the higher realms of what's really going on here. So I say, just write out everything, even if it seems far-fetched. Write out your dream life, because not that it's going to happen right away, but eventually you're going to have synchronicities that are going to give you some answers to the next steps to take. And it might not look exactly like what you wrote down, but you're going to start finding some magical things happening that maybe you haven't thought of yet, that start connecting dots, right? It starts to transform areas of your life. So I think it's important to look at how you bring in money, the people in your life, how you spend your time, what state your body's in, the emotional thoughts you're thinking every day, or how negative are you, or how positive are you? It's just becoming aware, because we are creators in our life. So by tapping into this awareness of your state of being and all this, you can start figuring out where you need to start working on first. And I think you're led. It's like we have to, sometimes we can't push through it. We have to allow answers to come.
You've said a couple key principles here. Number one, Everything is energy. I'm a certified law of attraction life coach, and that's the basis of the law of attraction. That which you think and dwell upon continuously, more will be sent to you, whether it's good or bad that you're thinking or dwelling upon. The other one was, you said this a little while back during your 18-month spiritual awakening. You fell in love with yourself. You're allowed to fall in love with yourself. I'm a wild and crazy bachelor for a long time. You know what? I love myself, so I enjoy life, and I go through. I mean, sure, I get grumpy sometimes and things, but you're allowed to love yourself, and we're so overwhelmed with the as going back to your chronic stress. The whole world is stressed out. I mean, just watch the news, and so, but you can leave that behind if you focus on these key principles you're talking about.
That's exactly right.
What is the when you work with somebody, what is some of the biggest roadblocks people encounter on their way to their own self-healing and living their ultimate life?
I think it's belief in self, belief in that you can have it. I think our human nature is trying to figure out how. If we can't rationalize how it's going to happen, I think we block it. So I think it's belief. I think is probably the hardest. Like I said, I do believe that was one of the keys to my healing, is when I believed I could get better, and I wasn't so afraid that I'm going to live in this chronic state of like my body's getting worse, because that's how it felt. The pain will get worse. But when I realized, oh, this is just my body coming back to life, that's a whole nother perspective. But I really got that. It wasn't even rational, but because I was going through it. So it's the belief that I could heal, changed everything. So I believe it affects everything, how we create.
Yeah. Wow. This is pretty interesting. I would like to go back for a moment to that 18-month period where you call it a spiritual experience. Was there anything in particular that triggered it? And wow, that's unusual for it to last that long. I mean, it'd be nice if it could last their whole life.
Yeah, and you know what I'm grateful for? I do feel like I live in that place now. I
Hmm.
don't think that is my normal state at this point. It's not that I don't have moments, but I shake it off pretty good. It's rare for me to have even a bad day. I might have a bad moment, but I'm pretty much connected to that place now. I realize that, and I'm very grateful for that, because I've had some crazy times these last couple years, and I thought, wow, I still feel a lot of joy. That's pretty awesome. So, I'm moving through my challenges knowing that this is going to lead to something better. Well, what happened was I went, it was my third trip back from Brazil. It was I was supposed to fly on September 11th, 2001, fly back, but they
Hmm.
mixed up our flights and we came back on September 10th. And I was flying into Pennsylvania on American. And the only reason I didn't argue, because I'd like to stay in Brazil like a couple extra days after we adjust, just to kind of recoup. I was so sick. I got so sick this time. Like, I got bug bites all over my face, had a fever, I was throwing up. I just needed to get back. And it was like a 13-hour flight. You're just barely hanging on. And I got back, and this whole 911 happens the next day. I was like in a fever, like stupor. I didn't understand if I was even seeing this right. And when the symptoms cleared, like, I just let my body do its thing. I knew it just had to purge off everything. And I did that, but I felt like I was left with this darkness. And I've never used that term at that. Now I understand that. But then this was in 2001. I didn't understand that term. I'm like, I feel like all this darkness is on me, but I don't know who's going to understand that. Well, I was adjusting a lady in my office, and she said to me, she goes, "You're really carrying a lot of darkness." And I was like, okay, she just read my mind. She said she did shamanic healings, which I did not know. And she said, take Epsom salt baths for about a week, light a white candle and tell the darkness to go to the light. And I thought, I'm just open. I was open to it. I'm like, it's easy enough to do. And she knew exactly how I felt, and I didn't describe it. Well, I did that. And that's what set off it's like I purged. I think I took off working on other people. And I realized too, I had to be aware. I was starting to take on people's energy when
Yeah.
I'm right. And you don't always aren't aware of that. So I learned how to balance myself too since then. But I just went into this happy place. And it was like quarterly. It just would go a little deeper, because
Hmm.
I would start seeing things that I was doing, like even going out with friends. I didn't need to do anything anymore. Like before I would get you would get the high from the action. Now I was just high. And it was like, I didn't care if I went or I stayed home. It was like, wow, this is so surreal. I'm like, this is awesome. Like everybody is looking for this place. Like this is what I've been searching for. And I always look at my life from before the gray state to after the gray state. It's like once I found the gray state, now I was secure in who I was. Now when I came up challenges or I've had another dark night of the soul since when I had my son, but it wasn't scary. I knew what was going on. I understood the process. I knew I was just purging stuff that was weighing me down so I could get back even to a more of a gray state. So life didn't look as so desperate. That's how I would feel. Felt desperate before. And then afterwards, it was just blissful.
Wow. Many of the things too, you mentioned, you said you were allowing people's energy to come into your energy field, and that's almost like many empaths have to deal with that. But also, you're laying physical hands on the people, and you're within their energy aura. Also, I think you mentioned your hands kind of got warmed up. I have Reiki master friends who their hands get hot when they're doing Reiki energy. So yeah, a lot going on there. So that makes sense that you would have to clear your own field out too after that. Wow. And you talked about state of grace. Let's find out now about your writing of your new book, My Journey to Grace. How did that come about, and why did you feel that you needed to write it?
Yeah, I didn't have plans to write a book. I was working on my online business. I wanted to help people with their healthy habits, become financially free, work on personal development. That's what I was working on. And then everything locked down in 2020. And I was really upset about what was happening for health freedom. I knew it wasn't right. I'm like, I already have been trying to make people aware of the medical corruption for the last 30 years. And I knew we were in big trouble. This wasn't about health. This was about our freedom. And I was really upset. I saw everybody falling into fear. And I thought, I never thought we were going to be locked up as long as we were. But the first couple of weeks, I just started writing. So I thought, you know what? Since I'm nothing's open to go to. I shouldn't say that I was locked up physically in my apartment, like I couldn't go out, but there was nowhere to go because everything was shut down. And I thought I was going to write my story because people need to know that we heal themselves. I thought maybe now is more the time than ever to empower people with positive, inspiring stories instead of so much fear mongering that's going on in the world. And so that's why I just decided to write. It was like kind of ignorance on fire. I just put words down, and then a friend told me that there's self-publishing, like Hay House has a self-publishing arm. I submitted it there, and it just kind of happened. And so I thought, well, maybe it's important, this is a blueprint. I found a lot of things that people can do to start creating their desired life, to really tap into the different energies in their life for true well-being. And that's what I put in the book. So.
Yeah, I actually, like I said, I've only had a chance to read that little sample section on Amazon. It looks pretty interesting, so I'm going to have to definitely grab a copy for myself. It looks pretty good. Your book is on Balboa Press, which is a self-publishing arm of Hay House. I've got a couple books out too on that. I haven't published with them yet, but if you want to write a book, and you don't have a regular book contract, that's the way to go. They're
it was amazing.
Yeah, very good organization. Anything to do with Hay House is great.
Yeah, I figured that because I've always been a big fan of Hay House, so I figured if they were associated with Hay House, it has to be a good thing. So.
Well, we're talking to Dr. Lynn Carey. Some amazing information, goes way beyond the physical, and that's why I love having her on here. So my regular listeners, I'm sorry I don't have any channels from the Pleiadians or Syrians or mediums on today. Lynn's got some great information here. Another thing too, we all have our power spots in the world, and I see that you achieved moving and living to your ideal city, Miami, Florida. Why there, and what is it about Miami that resonates with you?
I was looking for what a life looked like. I'm not someone who wants to just live in suburbia, be married, have a couple kids. That never resonated with me. I'm like, there's got to be more to life. My family just worked. That's all we did was work. And I thought a lot of them don't know what to do if they're not working. And I'm like, there's got to be something else. I saw people just partying on the weekends, getting drunk. And I thought, okay, if you're not doing that, what do you do? You know, and I just was always questioning, and my heart was drawn to Miami Beach. And when I moved there, it was everything I thought it could be and more, like the networking, the events, like just stuff. It was just life. I didn't even know such a place could exist. It was everything I dreamed of. But it's definitely taken a turn for me when we locked up, because everybody I was around was okay with being locked up. They, you know, I feel a little post-traumatic stress. Like if I wasn't wearing the mask, I would be like, I'm killing their grandmother, you know, craziness. And I'm like, I have a health degree, right? I have like 25 years experience, and I'm telling you, this is false information. And people were angry, you know, like you can't, like in so much fear, like in this propaganda trauma or something, and hypnosis. So, and just life was not, that hasn't been the same since then. So I've had to make a few adjustments since, and I lost what I was doing, because I was building everything in person, the networking, and we really lost that for 2 years. You know, it was not the same for about 2 years. I mean, if you wanted to go somewhere, people were still wearing masks. I just couldn't do it. So, yeah, so I'm learning to build online a little bit more, and reevaluating how I want my life to look. And it's okay, because I'm like, you know what, something better is going to come, because I've already tapped into so many things that are amazing, that all the pieces are going to start to come together in a new and better form.
Man, you said more than a mouthful there, and we could do a whole entire show just on that. So, but at the moment, let's do that. Oh man, that is great. So, you know, another thing here too. You mentioned on your website and in your book that you homeschool your son and you're raising him naturally. Why did you decide to go this route for him?
Gosh, you know, there's so many reasons. First, what I learned in chiropractic school, we were learning. I mean, the first thing I remember seeing was learning about vaccinations, and I hope I can say that word and not have, you have a problem with. I know sometimes the censoring is a little crazy.
I'm good with everything.
Okay. I was learning back then that it was causing a lot of trauma to kids, autism, a lot of diseases, allergies, all these things, right? I was learning just what was happening to kids and the wellness checks, going to pediatricians, all the antibiotics, all the stuff. Birth trauma, that's a whole nother topic. Like, so many women are not taught to trust their bodies now, and they're really, a lot of them are forced to have a C-section because it's on the doctor's watch, and they also get paid a lot more money, and they can schedule it in. So they're not on the 24/7 clock of when they decide it's time to a woman decides the time to go into labor. So it's about control. Like, there's so much going on, you know? And so by the time I had my son, I was already 8 years in practicing as a chiropractor. And I knew I didn't have any question. I was going to have a home birth. He wasn't going to be jabbed, and he wasn't going to be circumcised. There was, you know, and I didn't want to I got to the point where I don't go to the medical doctor anymore for anything, because I just don't want what they have to offer. I know what they're going to say, but I don't want that route. So, I mean, I always save that for very last resort, and I've never had to go because I've always figured it out. So, there was that aspect. I didn't want any interference for him. I adjusted him since he was born. He was breastfed. But then I also didn't want any interference with him having his own voice. I knew what I was learning now as an adult, I knew as a child, but society programmed it out of me, right? The religion, the family, the schooling, all that programmed it out of me. I knew something wasn't right with that system. I knew if I was just allowed to be who I was and have a voice, and if somebody listened to me, I had answers. So I had to undo everything I was taught. So I know we come in as source. We're clear channels to source until society interferes with us. So I just wanted my son to remain clear and honor his voice and honor who he was as a person. You know, even parents have misconstrued ideas like, oh, that's my child, and they're an extension of me, and they're going to just want what I want for them. No, they're their own person, right? Allow them to have a voice. See where they lead you. And I learned from my son, you know, he was, as a young, I wanted to see how he interacted with life, because I'm like, I can learn from him because he's still connected to source. So my whole thing was just to raise him with no interference. And I hated school. Oh my God, school was like, and I was an honor student, straight A, worked my butt off, right? Always worried about everything. School felt like prison to me every day. That was half of my problem. Like the anxiety. I still see kids going to school and I'm like, oh, they're going to that prison. I hated it. And I still feel like that. And my mom used to tell me, oh, you're going to wish you were back in school when you're out. And I thought, oh, dear God, it gets worse when you get out. Like, this is horrible. I'm like, no, I don't wish I was back. I wish I never went. I wasted my time there. It brainwashed me and it just was unnecessary. So my son, I just always gave him choices. Like even if he wanted to go to school, he did go for third and fourth grade. And then he decided to go back to homeschool. So and he flourished. It was crazy. Like he loved it. And I was like, what in the world? He likes this? But because he was free, he was just having an experience. It wasn't like this pressure. He knew he could leave when he wanted, and so I just wanted him to follow his expressions without this matrix telling him what he should want.
And how old is he now?
17.
Okay. Wow. I've got so many thoughts on this, and I think it's beautiful because, you said that young children growing up in school are not really allowed to have their own voice. And reading about you again in the early parts of your book there, when you were young, boy, you sure weren't allowed to have a voice in your school. That's no wonder you're on this path. Man.
Yeah, it's crazy. It is crazy. The Catholic stuff's really crazy. There was a lot of crazy nuns, they were really just unhappy people and they should not have been teaching children. But,
well, I believe that probably goes beyond just Catholic schools. There is a lot of situations like that around the world. So,
for sure.
Wow, there's so many things we can talk about. But is your book is My Journey to Grace? Did it just come out, or it's available on Amazon and on your website?
Yeah, it's on my website. My website is creatingmydesiredlife.com. It's there. It's on Amazon. It's also on barnesandnoble.com. I published it in 2020.
Okay. Yeah, and too, I think you have an audiobook on it, right?
Yes, I do.
That's interesting because I'm just getting ready to record an audiobook of my book, True Spiritual.
Okay.
And since I was in radio, I'm going to record most of it myself and produce.
Yeah, sure.
But Dr. Lynn Carey, thank you so much for being on World Awakenings. I would love for you to tell, I saw this on your website, you have a master class that you offer called Creating a Desired Life. What is that about and how can people get involved with it?
Yeah, so I have a link on my Instagram that you can go right to it. If you go to which is dr.Lynn at Dr. Lynn Carey, it's there. But if you just go to my website, you can email me. Actually, I just emailed Balboa. I don't think my link is working on there to contact me. You told me that. I just tested it myself. So I put a message into Balboa and I said, hey, I don't think the contact me is working. But my email is lynncarey26@hotmail.com. You can just email me and I can send you the link. It's just basically what I recorded. It's an hour and a half, broken up into 5 parts. Basically like having a consultation with me. So I did it by video of what I would tell people, how to start reorient yourself to looking at healing, creating financial freedom and mindset development and relationships in your life. And so I basically just put a little course together that you can take yourself, rewatch the videos, and I have some PDFs that go with it. So
it's about living your life and your ultimate well-being. And I have this vision in my head. Wouldn't it be great just to visualize for a moment millions and millions and millions of, we have 8 billion people in the world who are living their ultimate life. And that would be the one verse.
Oh, that would be the one verse. Carl, I really believe we're coming into that now. I think we're reaching a critical mass where the consciousness is shifting and we're reaching more people. Here's one example. Before 2020, my son and I were considered weird. Like my son felt it. I didn't feel it. He said, I'm weird because I'm not jabbed. I'm homeschooled. We're kind of like on the fringe of society. Well, guess what? Now all of a sudden, 3 years later, we're like, people like, oh, you were the pioneers. You were the cool ones. Oh, you did that? That's so neat. Like people are questioning that. I said to him, my son, I'm like, did you ever think in this short amount of time how that changed? Look at the awareness now. So I really believe people are really questioning things and we're coming into our own power. I know it's going to happen. So it's really exciting, I think, to be here now and watch this awakening happen. And I think people like you and I are here to just say, hey, this is what you're looking for. Like this, we can do it. These are tools.
It's a world awakening, and that's the show. And many of my guests have talked about how humanity is in a transition period of moving into a whole new world. They call it transitioning from the 3D to the 5D into a world of awareness and understanding, the connectivity. And I'll tell you what, it is such a beautiful, beautiful place. And that's one of the reasons I started this program. I want to know more. There's got to be something better. And I know you say the same thing. And you know what? People like you are making us aware there is something better. And thank you for that, Lynn. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for all you're doing, because you're doing the same. And you know what? It's by us having these conversations and sharing our stories. This is how we shift humanity to that grace state.
This has been another episode of World Awakenings, the fast track to enlightenment with host Carl Gruber, a certified law of attraction life coach. We welcome you to tune in to each and every episode of World Awakenings as we open your mind, your heart, and your eyes to the fact that the world's population is now, more than ever, awakening to the truth of all things spiritual, metaphysical, and enlightening, and just how much they play an all-important role in our moment-to-moment daily life. Much love and light to you, my friend, and thank you for tuning into World Awakenings.